Today we're gonna be making an easy fried donut. How easy, you ask? So easy that there's only 4 ingredients in front of me. Hi everyone! Welcome to another episode of Cooking with Kimmie. Yes, one more! We haven't canceled it, even though there are 4 of you only on the other side of this screen. Whee! Today we're gonna be making an easy fried donut. So this recipe is not a traditional donut. It's not yeasted, where it's not gonna take like 2 hours resting, proofing, rolling, all that stuff. It's very simple, very basic, and it's gonna get you, I don't even wanna call it a donut because it's not technically a donut. Fried puffy bread thing that's even more delicious. Dare I say, than a donut. So here I have 4 ingredients. It only takes 4 ingredients to make this recipe, aside from all your toppings, which we'll talk about later. Here I have some flour, some white sugar, some water, and some baking powder. So the baking powder is what's really important here because that's what's gonna give us our lift and our rise in the fryer. Normally with donuts, you'd use yeast and then it would take a really long time to develop and rise, and your recipe would take like 3 hours plus. But this very cheat style recipe uses a pretty large amount of baking powder because it's gonna lift and puff immediately in the hot oil. So here I have a bowl with our flour. Then I'm just gonna add our white sugar. As usual, all of the measurements are down below, as well as a link to our website with all our step-by-step photos. And then to the sugar and the flour, we're just gonna add our baking powder. And so you're just gonna whisk these ingredients together. This is pretty important here. Because of the small amount of ingredients we're using, we want to make sure that the baking powder is well distributed in the flour. And then we're just gonna add water. And you just want enough water for this to come together into a dough that you can roll or handle easily. If you notice in the recipe, the water is gonna be like 2 to 3 cups, and that's really gonna depend. I'll always start with the smaller amount of water and then add a little bit of water by the tablespoon or 2 as you go along to get the consistency that you want, because different flours absorb water differently. So depending on what you use, you may need a little bit more or a little bit less. So once your dough is almost all together and there are just some dry spots, you can transfer it to a cutting board or your surface and just continue kneading there until it just comes together. So this shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes or so, just until no dry spot remains and your dough is no longer tacky. I'm not even really kneading this, I'm just waiting for it to come together. It's been about 3 minutes. As you can see, when I touch the dough, it doesn't stick to my fingers. And that's all you're really looking for here. Next thing we're gonna do, you can go 2 different ways with this. What you can do is roll it out really thin and cut it into squares and fry those squares. That would give you like fake beignets, square donut, fried dough. But what you can do, which is also really fun, is that this dough actually fries nicely, even in very large pieces. So I actually like to divide this into 4 and then roll it out really thin and fry them big. So that's what we're gonna do here today, but you have many options with how to finish this dough. A deer, a female deer, ray a drop of golden sun. Me, her name, I call myself. So I've divided my dough into 4 balls and I'm just gonna roll it out. The dough is very easy to roll out. If it starts resisting, then you can let it rest for a little bit, maybe 10 to 15 minutes before you start rolling again. But it should be fairly easy to roll out fairly thinly. So you don't want this any thicker than like 1/4 of an inch, because then that will kind of leave you a raw doughy center, which you don't want. You want the whole thing to kind of puff up and be crispy and soft. If it's starting to stick to your rolling pin, just lightly put some flour And then that's it. I'm gonna roll out the rest and then we'll get frying. Here, if you wanted to do your squares or your strips, you could roll out the entire thing before cutting it, or even after you roll it here, you can cut it into as many pieces as you want and then do that. That easy. Oh, even Dan could make it. I'm just kidding. Love you, Dan. So now we have our 4 pieces of dough rolled out into these long pieces. You can even, after you roll them out to get them even thinner, just let gravity help you, and you can pull them carefully, of course, so that it doesn't get any holes. Here I have my oil preheating to about 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Oh, another thing to mention is that you don't want to make your dough longer or bigger than your pot, which is what I did. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, just a shallow amount of oil because these are thin, so they don't need that much, and we will flip them over. You'll want to cook them until they're golden brown on both sides, about 3 minutes per side. Then we'll be ready to serve. We'll show you the frying and all that stuff. So just gonna carefully lower it into the hot oil, and as you can see, it will puff almost immediately. Here you can see all those big bubbles forming, and that's the baking powder. Even though it took us less than 20 minutes, you have a delicious piece of fried dough. So you're just gonna let it get a little bit golden before flipping it over. And now that it's light golden brown, I'll just flip it over and fry the other side. And once the entire thing is golden brown and puffy and airy, you can just take it out of the oil and drain it on a paper towel. It will deflate a little bit, and that's okay, but as you can see from here, you already got your initial lift and your rise, so it's gonna be very light and puffy inside. Ooh, look at the steam. Okay. Now I'll continue frying the other 3, and then we'll serve them up with some fun toppings. That's pretty much it. So it's puffy and slightly sweet fried dough, but really you could put any toppings you want, Nutella, peanut butter, whatever floats your boat. But today we have powdered sugar. These are also great in the style of beignets where you just load like a crap ton of powdered sugar on top. But we also have our homemade cocoa jam. If you guys want our homemade cocoa jam, which is delicious on this bread because you really taste the flavor of the homemade jam. If you guys wanted to learn how to make this at home, just click on the recipe down below where you can find out how to make this in a step-by-step process and how to customize it to make a cocoa jam that's perfect for you. So I'm just gonna finish mine with a good smear of the cocoa jam and a lot of powdered sugar. So I'm just gonna get about a tablespoon or 2. This homemade jam. While your donut is still warm, it should be nice and spreadable in the center. Just put as much or as little toppings as you want, but obviously this is a great vehicle for any of your favorite toppings. Plus, it's the holidays, so you can eat as much sweets as you like. And then I will just cover the whole thing in a giant amount of powdered sugar. Obviously, this is not health food. Don't be like in the comments, oh my god, that looks so unhealthy. That's the point. And done. So there you go. There's your easy fried donut inspired by the long-lost beaver tails in either SM or Glorieta. If you wanted to cut it up before serving so that it's easier to eat, go ahead. If you're eating it by yourself, don't cut it up. Just eat it like this. It's better that way. Bye and see you next time. Thanks for joining.